Winter clings to the air as the seasons are starting to change in the havens of the Ironlands. Eldrid, following the hunting trails that she has become very familiar with, checking traps for any fresh game that may have unfortunately found their way into them. She continues along her path until she pauses and notices within the dirt some tracks. She adjusts her bow and kneels down, taking a closer look at what is before her. The shape indicates possibly deer, maybe a few, though keeping in line, of course. She looks forward and off to the sides from her somewhat secluded trail and sees a possible path that the deers might have gone. With a quick look over, she does see the trail continues. She pulls forward her bow and draws an arrow from a quiver. She prepares herself to enter a hunt. Hello! Welcome to our premiere episode of Unbound Lands. This is very exciting for me. It is a new kind of frontier for me. I've done some streaming, but let me properly introduce this. So, Unbound Lands is a solo RPG campaign of the tabletop game Ironsworn. For those who may not have ever heard of Ironsworn, it is a RPG made by Shawn Tomkin, which is available on ironswornrpg.com. Uses a similar system to those like Apocalypse World and Dungeon World. So if you're only used to D20 systems, you'll find this a little bit different from that. So with Ironsworn, this is a kind of more serious toned fantasy game. It's a little more grittier, a little low fantasy. And there will be elements of and themes of survival and violence, whether it is nature versus nature versus other people. Really those kind of elements. So if you are sensitive to, like, as we are about to approach hunting an animal or any more violent acts, obviously discretion. If you need to walk away, that is perfectly fine. I'm doing this for fun and learning the system. I'm still fairly new, so we're gonna learn this all together, but I think it will be a great story we will build here. And I can introduce to you the character that we'll be following. So our character, which I believe I mentioned the name of, her name is Eldrid. Show the little character sheet here that I made up. So we have our stats at the top. She is definitely more of a hitter, not much of a people person, though she does care. She is most proficient with her sword and her bow, which is why she's been out hunting today. So with that, why don't we start a little intro and get back to the story? So, Eldrid is following the deer tracks closely, weaving quietly and gently, trying to avoid stepping on any branches or any pile of leaves that could give away her spot. starts to pass through and around a small gathering of trees. She sees a open thicket just ahead of her. The sun is still fairly low in the sky from the morning, and she has been out since the crack of dawn. There's a fine morning mist from early dew and frost having been melted away under what warmth the sun can provide in these lands. And out ahead of her, she does see deer. So far, they haven't seemed to take hold or take notice of her. She watches as they graze among the grass and the clover. Eldrid begins to crouch down and gain her position. She draws back her bow and anchors her hand right against her jaw, taking very quiet, shallow breaths. And in just a moment, as the call of birds drift off, she loosens her arrow. And in that flash of a moment, she watches the arrow fly forth and go for her target. Let's see if it does hit. Consider this a strike, actually. So why don't we roll? And I believe we will roll with edge, as that is her stronger stat. Ooh. So we got a strong hit on this. So as the arrow goes forth, she sees her target trying to center right within the chest, like aiming straight for the heart to take this deer down. She watches it as it flies on and sinks through. For a moment, the deer makes a yelp of surprise and pain as it goes to turn. And for that brief moment, she did think that, shoot, did I miss the heart? Am I going to have to try and now hunt this deer down through the forest to put out his misery? But as it starts to turn and make a couple steps, it drops. And now she has a deer that she can bring back home to her little village of Tisrabuk. As the other deer scatter off, she puts back her bow across her body and starts to come through the thicket, looking over her fresh kill. And it seems to be good. It's a young deer, but old enough to have seen a generation of offspring or two. Just a doe. Eldrid pulls out the arrow. Seems to still be fairly alright, so she'll clean it later and starts to prepare the body so that she can try and carry it as best as she can. Since most of the hunting traps haven't yielded anything, this might be the only kill she gets through the day. So once the deer, she wraps up the feet with some rope and tries to lift it up and close to her body so she's able to walk with it. It's not super huge, maybe about her weight. So enough to slow her down to get back, but she can carry her own. She's a lot sturdier than those who may judge her for. She starts to make her way back to her hunting path. Still going along, as there's still a few more traps to check and reset if need be. And eventually, as she continues on, her path does start to come up to an opening, and that opening leads to a road. And this road is familiar to her. It's one that goes back to her village up north and also continues south to further down the Havens. But as she steps on the path and goes to look up and down the road north of her, just south of her, she sees there is a small wagon being drawn by a single horse. And she sees just a small crowd of people. She counts maybe 4 adults and 1 child, maybe about somewhere between 9 and 11. And as she kind of focuses her gaze and takes a closer look at the situation, she sees 2 men who are wearing breastplate and helms of metal over bright red tunics. One of them is holding the boy, the child, while a woman dressed in kind of earthen tones and dress and a man are arguing with them. Now, it's not really Eldrid's business to intervene, but she's never seen folk wearing red tunics and the kind of plated armor these 2 men are wearing. As she kind of starts to put down the deer just off the road, she can see that there is some distress with the couple and child, and the couple seems to be very upset and arguing, but she can only get certain words that are a little muffled still from this distance. So quietly she puts the deer down and starts going down the path, deciding that she'll just be nonchalant, just another hunter. Very, very plentiful in the Havens. Many people, when they're not farming, they are hunting, so very likely story. And as she gets closer, she does start to hear more of the conversation. The woman, she has olive skin and dark brown hair. She's almost begging the 2 men. She's like, please, we were just traveling to go see some family. We don't know what's going on. We're just, please, just trying to go visit family. And the man that seems to possibly be her partner or her husband is standing very firm next to her. And he says, We don't even recognize your colors. We don't know who you are. We're just want to go on our way. And, the 2 men, she can see their heads turn to each other and look back to them, ready to say something back, until one, holding the boy, the child back, kind of points towards Eldrid. And he says, "Hey, what do you think you're doing there?" And Eldrid pauses. She has her story as she tries to recall, and goes, just a hunter. I'm following the path, heading south. I have a hunting trail that way. The other men in the red tunic, who was more engaged with the couple, he turns, putting a hand on a long sword that's just off on his hip. Turns to her. He says, "Well, now that you've come across us, we seem to have a bit of trouble. Better get over here." In that moment, Eldrid just takes a quiet look over at the couple, and she sees almost a bit of pleadingness in their eyes. "All right," Eldrid responds in a slow tone and takes very slow, purposeful steps forward. The man that turned to her draws his blade, and he says, "Do you have any idea who we are?" And Eldrid just kind of very little shakes her head and says, "I have no idea who you are. In all of the Ironlands, I've never seen the likes of you. Though I've seen many men who dare try to hurt others." And both the red tunic men kind of scoff at her. As the sword-drawn one comes forward a few more steps. They're like, "Well, soon you will know of us. Soon you will know of our leader, and you will know of the kind of tyranny we can bring down upon you when you don't follow our ways. But now that you have seen us, we can't let you go." And of course, at that, Eldrid definitely cocks an eye. She's used to her life in her little village of Tizerbrook, and never has anyone kind of made that sort of threat that she knows of, even in passings of travelers from the north or the south. "Is that so?" she says in reply. "Well, I never known of a man in our history of having lived in these lands to even try and take over. Why are you so confident in your leader?" And as she tries to get the men to stay engaged on her, she can see that the little boy is ready to bolt. And the mother is reaching back for the horsewhip that is within the wagon seat that Eldrid's able to see within her view. The man closest to her continues saying, "Well, listen, lass, either you come with us, or your loved ones will eventually find you on the side of the road." Well, as Eldrid starts to put her hand on her own sword on her hip, "If you're going to issue a challenge, you better make it a challenge." She draws forth her blade. So let's get into combat, shall we? All right. So Eldrid draws out her blade, and the other man is already starting to rush forth now that she has engaged with his threat. So we're going to do a roll to start this off and face our danger. So as the man starts coming forward, Eldrid takes her position and tries to quickly decide if she should step aside and try and cut into his leg, as it seems he has armor around his chest. So we're going to go with our edge, which means we're going to be quick, we're going to be agile, and we're going to try and make precise strikes. All right, a strong hit. One thing we need to do as Ironsworn game is also add our foe to our table or to our character progress. So we are going to have the Raiders, which are a dangerous foe. All right. With our roll of plus edge, 3 + 3 versus 3 and 5, so we got a strong hit. So yes, Eldrid does go in, blade following down and forth, and goes to cut in to the man's leg. And as she does feel a bit of pressure and gets like a strong kind of lean into it, but the man quickly kicks off to try and back off and get space between the two of them. You do inflict 2 harm on this fellow. Momentum. So we're able to get a strong hit on that, which is great. So now that we are in combat, we're going to go in for a strike, and once again with edge, as it is our strongest, and we can use our Swordmaster ability to do additional harm. That is not good, but we're going to try burning our momentum. So we didn't get as much as we wanted off that momentum. So even though we tried to go in for a strike and throw the initial man off balance, you just can't get in, and we're going to suffer the consequence of that. In the meantime, as she starts engaging off to the side by the wagon, the woman has already started to kind of move around the wagon, trying to seem like she's putting it between her and the fight. The man is, that seems to be her husband, is keeping his position, and the boy has yet to dash off while the other man is holding him, the other red tunic. Now we no longer have advantage, so we're gonna be trying to take that back. So the man that Eldridge is facing, he now comes in hard to her to strike her down. It is more difficult for her as she realizes this man is a little bigger. The armor is giving him some extra weight to help with his momentum. Let's see what move we can do now. Reading some of the combat stuff, and it is interesting. I did mess up the start, but that's okay. It's all a learning process, right? We'll get better as we go. So currently our foe has initiative, so we're going to be going into a clash with them, and we can roll either edge or iron against them to try and take back our advantage. So Eldridge is all about her strength, so we are going to continue with edge. And hope we get a decent hit here. Yes, okay. So, the red tunicked man number 1 starts charging in on her and ready to putting down his blade as much as he can, ready to cut right into her shoulder. But in that moment, she takes a second to quickly drop down her knee to force the man to momentum back over her as she comes back up and jabs, brings her body into him to check him back. So we are going to do additional harm to this guy, so that we end up doing 2 harm instead of 1 on this clash. And now that we have our initiative once again, we're going to go in for a strike. And I think we will use... No, we won't use what our Swordmaster ability is. Okay, so we'll go in for and strike now that we have our initiative. Just can't seem to maintain it. So even with being able to initially take that back, she goes to try and brings up her sword, but Eldrid kind of misstepped in how much space she had to operate and move her sword in to strike him. So he comes back around, ready to wallop her, just in her back this time. We'll iron in this clash. A weak hit. So even though it is a weak hit, we get 1 inflict harm on this one, but we do pay a price for it. So let's roll on our table and see what that price is, shall we? So for a moment, as Eldridge realizes her mistake, she feels a blade rack across her back and cut within her leathers. Obviously, the sword was made to waste through anything that isn't armor. But with that, she goes with the motion of it and turns and strikes Just a bit of sword off glancing across his side. Surprising development. Okay. So in that moment, she does hear a cry off to the side from the couple. And she takes a quick glance within her turn to get back up and face her opponent. She sees just very, very quickly that the husband went to engage the other man, the tunic. And that man seems to have just struck his sword through the traveling man's side. That will be something to deal with in a moment if we don't finish this fight. So we're going to try in our attempts to clash again. Yes, a strong hit. So now, becoming focused, realizing that the people that she's now trying to help from these two red tunics, they are about to be in very deep trouble. So she focuses down and turns tightly and pulls and strikes forward with her blade. And with her sword master ability, now that we got a strong hit, we can add a +1 immediately to our next strike. So we get a momentum, and we're going to go in for a strike. We are very close, so we'll be with iron. Get our bonus of +1. All right. So we do get another strike. Eldrid turns her blade once again, and with the momentum, swings full circle and strikes up. She clips the man across the shoulder and throws the helm, clipping it up from underneath and off his head. In that moment when she thinks she's managed to distract him from that action, he brings his blade back around, now getting furious, if he wasn't furious already. Clash once more as he has taken our initiative. So we do get another harm off, but yet again, as we go and just try and block the blow, his blade now goes and cuts into her other shoulder, and she feels the pressure being completely compressing down on her. She's starting to feel that blade slowly sink and hit her clavicle. And now she's starting to feel that weakness and numbness cut through her arm with the pain. We'll consider that weakened arm her price to pay until she can recover. Clash again. Oh no, a complication. And 2 10s, so this is the absolutely worst result we can have. Alright, our premiere may end here. So, complications are interesting in that not only did we completely whiff, which we'll have to roll on our table here, but now we gotta figure out what issue she has. So yeah, and this she does start to feel like that sword just sinking right down in. And she loses her grip with that arm. She can now hear off to the side the woman fighting with the red tunic man. And the young child yelling out. Something of value is lost or destroyed. So in that moment when she feels just suddenly her arm go limp, she also hears a clink as the bow that she had strapped on her back, the string snaps completely, and she can feel it just fall off her back. So her bow is now useless to her. So we are going to try and do a turn the tide and risk everything to try and get this fight back. So there it is in chat for people understand what that is. So we're gonna try and steal our initiative back because we were stuck in a clash right now. It's the close quarters that are getting to her because she's stronger on her edge as an archer. We will give a +1, and it gives us a +1 to our momentum on a hit. Ooh. Oh man, okay. I was nervous. So we get a momentum. And we inflict harm on this guy. We'll do an additional harm as part of our strong hit, as we can do in our clash. So she feels the pain. She loses the grip with her one arm as it goes limp beside her. And Eldrid grits her teeth, really clenches her jaw, and just uses all of her strength and her legs and tilts her blade to try and go up and underneath this man's armor. And starts to push in back as he's coming down on her. Now, in this position, it's precarious. Her arm could be taken off in any moment. She hears the couple yelling off to the side in a scuffle. But we are going to do what we can to take this fight back. So I think we're gonna try The tunic man in front of her is starting to weaken, but it's not quite. It's a risk to try and finish with the current progress that we have. So we're going to go in with a strike and burn momentum to improve our score to hopefully get additional harm. Kit. Well, let's burn that momentum then. Okay. So now we get additional harm, so I keep forgetting to track that. So we're down pretty low. But we get off one on him as well. We lost our initiative. So in this, Eldrid does kind of go in and sink further, and she feels his blade kind of sink back. But as she does, he starts yelling out, full frustration, pulls his sword back up, and with a foot just kicks back on her chest. She was already pretty low to the ground, so she didn't go prone, but does feel that weight push her. She falls a bit off to the side. But as he's kind of recoiling a bit, trying to resteady his stance so he can get a strong whack down on her, we're gonna try and end the fight. So Eldridge can see a clear moment from the point where she made her strike into him just below the breastplate. She can see that there's a way to push her sword up and hopefully strike deep within his chest. So when we make a move to take our action here, score a strong hit, you may resolve the outcome. A strong hit, okay. Don't have initiative, unfortunately, because of our weak hit last time. This is tricky. This is tricky choices. Make this a complete one-shot deal per year if we die here. Okay. Okay. So we are going to try, even though we're in the clash, we're going to try and end this fight. We have no bonuses currently, so let's hope the dice are in our favor for this. Oh no! No. So it is a complete miss. We have lost not end it, so let's see what our price is. You care, but it's exposed to danger. Okay. So as Eldrid gets back up and tries to strike at the man, he throws his blade and pushes her back and off so that he can get a possibly clear next shot. But she sees that the other red tunic man is now grabbing the horse from the wagon and unlatching it, ready to run off with the horse, just hopping on and full bolting. The woman is over her husband on the ground, and the child is clinging to her back. It's all in a flash of a moment. Here. Not looking good. Weak hit. All right, we will. I'm still trying to end this fight, so we are going to endure. Yeah, I think we may endure a short victory. Oh no, we're going to endure some stress here. So we are going to be severely wounded for a condition. But in that moment, as she feels the blade of her enemy once again coming in and slicing off to her side, as she turns away just enough to avoid another critical blow on her body, she comes in following her initial vision of plunging her blade and scoops it up just enough to do a sweeping cut underneath the armor and strike his chest up from underneath. Complication. But once she has taken her enemy down, she does see the man in the red tunic on the horse just now heading straight south. He would be close enough for her to strike with her bow if it was not broken now next to her. But now, as Eldrid, panting, pulling her blade out so the man's body can fall to the ground before her instead of on top of her. She stays basically seated where she is and looks towards the family that's there with their wagon. The woman has propped up her husband up against the wagon wheel. She's already kind of directing her child to hold the wound on the man as she looks over to Eldrid. And there's a mix of horror, of almost a pleadingness, that the kind of phase you get when you just are feeling deeply guilty. In a very dazed now, as the full pain courses through her body. She can tell, even from a glance, just there's red soaking the fur of her cloak and coming down her arm. With her one good arm, she kind of pulls forward her little satchel where she keeps her supplies in case anything was to happen while out on the road, and kind of tries to unhook it. The woman comes over, rushing. She says, "I am so sorry. We didn't mean to. We were just trying to get to safety. I'm so sorry." Eldrid just quietly nods. He's like, I have supplies here. Just try and patch up what you can of him. She begins to feel some dizziness and the beat of her heart filling her ears. The woman kind of just puts her up, trying to keep her from knocking over. This is really bad. Is your village close? And Eldrid nods again, but very kind of slow and low. She, what she can with her good arm, points down the road to the north and says, "Down that path. Don't forget, my dear," as her vision goes black on her. So, in the time that she is blacked out, the one red tunic had taken the horse and traveled far south. He passes the large village of Red Rock, kind of the main settlement of the Havens, and continues on in the direction of the Flooded Lands towards the south. He comes to another village of Greenbrook, who's recently been sacked. Smoke is trailing still within the air. And there are many other red tunics with plates of armor kind of patrolling the walls as one does hail out to him. Oh, I could continue here. Or this may be a good place to stop. I think it might be. So, thank you for joining me. Yes, I'll be keeping these kind of sessions an hour-ish. This gives a lot for me to handle between production side and keeping the story. It is hard doing it by yourself. It really is. Especially when you're nervous, because then you don't know what to say or how to respond sometimes. At least I hope it was an interesting look at Ironsworn. Again, if you want to find it, ironswornrpg.com is where all the free stuff is. And if you have Foundry, there is there's already a thing set up in systems for that, which is what I've been using to help with the rolls and stuff. There is a lot of moves with this, which is why I was taking time to figure out, okay, what is it that I want to do? Yeah, it is quite an interesting system. I think once you get used to it, because I am stuck on D&D brain, so once you get used to what order of operations for certain moves are, it'd be pretty interesting. But in the meantime, thank you for joining me. You can follow me on all my socials, which have kind of been this nameplate underneath my cam. At Ghost Candle in most places. If you're watching on Twitch, you know it's Ghostly Candle. I haven't had any hydration during this whole thing, so hang on. Okay. I was like, oh wow, my throat is... I'm now feeling the pain in my throat from not drinking water. But yes, this will be a nice progress, I suppose, both in terms of the actual story, in terms of me as a storyteller and getting better with that, getting more comfortable with the space. I hope to eventually get something to help with scene change, so I'm not always like looking all over the place for what I need to do. Definitely need to bring stuff on the screen over to this screen, so I'm not always looking away from you all. And yeah, I don't know what more there is to say at this point, other than saying thank you again. Hope you had a good time. Hope you have a good evening. I got some notes to make on all this interesting progress we have. We had very unfortunate rolls for a good chunk of that, so Eldrid may need some time to heal, but may not have enough time to fully recover given the circumstances. So, we will see you next time, and have a good evening, day, night, wherever it is, wherever you are. Enjoy it, and we'll see you the next time I stream. And if you happen to like this, of course, you can support me on various stuff, which all of it's down in the About section for Ko-Fi, Stream Element tips, whatever that is. And yeah, see you next time. Thanks, bye.